All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from SalesPOP, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny, actually extremely sunny San Diego, bit of a heat advisory out there. And today I'm delighted to welcome Amy Vaughan, who is in Cincinnati, Ohio. How are you doing, Amy?
I'm doing great. Thanks, John.
Yeah, and Amy is CEO of Together Digital, a 500 plus member platform that has redefined networking by prioritizing genuine relationships over transactional exchanges, resulting in measurable career advancement, including raises and promotions for women in tech. Over 14 years as an award-winning creative director for global brands like Ford, P&G, Walmart. Uh, Amy combines creative leadership with proven business results. And what we're going to talk about today is from sales funnels to community circles, building a trust first business. So, Amy, just start off. Give me the genesis of Together Digital. Where did that concept and the member platform and the idea of a community first approach come from?
Absolutely. It's really quite interesting. I'm a product of the community itself. I'm doing what I'm doing because of the communities and the connections I created with Together Digital. So
Mhm.
I'm not the founder. I
Right.
was a member first. It was founded in 2016 by a woman named Alina Shear, who had just experienced some sexual harassment and discrimination kind of at the height of the Me Too movement
Mhm.
and wanted to create a safe space for women to talk about the things that they love in work and life, but then also have vulnerability. And that really appealed to me. Granted, I was fortunate and didn't have the same
Mhm.
kind of vile experiences that she had. I did have this sense of isolation and loneliness as I worked through the ranks of agencies into the role of creative director, being a working mom and balancing ambition and life and everything else in between. It was just really great to be in community and work with women, who were of a similar mindset. They're strong-willed, they're creative, they're achieving, they're climbing, they're growing, and in the midst of that, they're creating and raising life.
Mhm.
And that's no small feat. And I really think it's something that we do need. It takes a village to raise the kids, but it also takes a village to keep us parents safe. And so, yeah, I was a
Mhm.
member for the first 2.5 years. I served as a volunteer on the board and then had the opportunity to help run things when she decided to run for Congress, which was something a member encouraged her to
Mhm.
do. And I had been a creative director and kind of pegged in that role in that space, even though I very much love the idea of operations and running a business because of my connections, because of the volunteer work
Mhm.
I did, because of my reputation that I built within the community. Of anybody that she could have asked, she asked me.
Mhm.
So I took things over right at the beginning, or the end of 2019. So just 4 months shy of the pandemic happening, which obviously turned the whole business upside down, being very much an in-person events organization.
Right.
Having to figure out how to kind of navigate that, was really unique and interesting, and we've then such evolved in a way, that I think it's really helped to kind of shape my view of what it means to have a customer journey and a funnel, and changed a lot of what I used to think or was taught in marketing and advertising to see it a little differently today.
Yeah. So have you seen, because let's face it, pre-pandemic, it was starting already. I think, people were sort of starting to rediscover this idea of community, of relationships, of connecting, because I think we gone through a phase where people are kind of retreated behind technology. And
Mhm.
obviously with the pandemic then obviously accentuated all of that. Do you think do you get the sense that there is a greater appetite for community like yours today than perhaps there might have been like 3 4 years ago?
Yeah, I do, I really do, but the funny thing is there's an appetite for it, but I don't think people necessarily realize it's what they're hungering for until they
Mm.
experience it, and they're
Right.
like, "Oh, this is what I'm missing."
Mhm.
Because I think it has gotten easy to just stay behind the Zoom screen, to do the self-checkouts, to do your shopping only online, but we are truly missing, and I do think there's going to be another pivot, right? Because 'Cause we're humans and there's always
Mm.
that pendulum swing
Mhm.
of, I think it's gonna be I think, in my opinion, personally, I hope it becomes a balance of leveraging technology, but that technology is what brings us closer versus driving us apart. I think that's, like, the next phase of what we're into, as we kinda look ahead as a community, as an organization. I think that's been unique for us because, a lot of organizations like ours, because there's a lot more,
Mhm.
which is, again, to answer your question,
Yeah.
100% people want more communities like this. We were the only at the time. Here 10 years later, we've got ones all around us, and it's
Mhm.
great. But we've evolved in such a way that we really remain accessible to busy working women by providing a lot of online content and online community, virtual peer groups, and they get a lot of stuff done.
Mhm.
From the comfort of home. We've had whole summits, virtual summits, we've had
Right.
check fairs online, and accomplished a lot of connections, like meaningful connections, and then go downstairs and make dinner for our family.
Mhm. Mhm.
So to me, there's like that. I'm excited for that beauty of kind of the combination of us achieving true connectivity, whether we're online or offline.
Yeah. And tell me about the idea of building a trust first business, because I mean obviously trust is a huge attribute that a lot of companies like strive for. Um,
Mhm.
Not many, I would say, ever really get there because especially because there's so many touch points with an organization now that it's very easy to break trust. But tell me about building a trust first business.
Absolutely. I did a whole talk on this last year about building trust, and a lot of it came from my own learnings, having worked with large conglomerate agencies to small independent agencies, and then now running my own small business. I will caveat it is easier, in my opinion, to earn the trust of folks when it is like less layers, less
Hmm.
bureaucracy. So there's the ability to be more vulnerable, to be more transparent. Now, there are definitely brands out there that I think do a great job of that. And I think they see that in dividends, honestly, at the bottom line, but it's a long game.
Yeah.
It's a long game, and it's can be a dicey game when you have a lot of liability on the table. So, just prefacing that
Mhm.
with my answer, because I understand I've seen all levels of, different types of businesses and the climates they're working in. And
Mhm.
I know it's never as easy as it is for me, where it's like literally turnkey, right? So for me, transparency is absolutely one. And of course, it's like, oh, how much transparency? Well, that's something that you have to agree and align on.
Right.
At the end of the day, people with the world wide web and, the amount of information we receive as consumers, you just have to know at one point or another, the bad's going to come out. It's really
Mhm.
about your response. And so I think
Right.
establishing trust starts with some level of understanding that people want transparency, and then knowing how much to give. And the next is value alignment. I think values are often just kind of on a piece of paper. They're maybe on the walls of the office to tell you what they stand for. But at the end of the
Yeah.
day, if I ran into you on the street, are you exuding those values? Are you living those values? Are you speaking to those values? And I think a lot of companies do a good job of putting it on paper, putting it on their walls, but then you talk to somebody that works there and you can just kind of tell there's not an alignment. And so as a
Right.
customer, if that's the interaction and I don't feel there's a sense of consistency from one experience to the next in the sense of values, something inside me starts to say, this might not be a place I can trust.
Yeah, yeah,
So I
yeah, and
think,
especially what you're just saying there on values. I think if you're gonna have them, yeah, obviously you need to live them. Yeah, I call them bumper stickers because a lot of organizations
yes.
have them on their website and all of that, but they're kind of meaningless because when you interact with the organization, as you say, you pretty quickly establish what their values are. And I think
Mhm.
the other point today, Amy, is that there are so many different touch points from a
Yeah.
prospect to a customer that if that
Mhm.
isn't a consistent experience, one bad experience, one person not living the values can destroy
Yep.
the whole thing.
100%, absolutely, yeah, I in the talk that I gave last year, it was very much it's like an inside out approach, like, you really have
Mhm,
to make sure that the people that you are hiring, you're training, you're coaching, you're mentoring, truly understand the values of the company, and then themselves are in alignment as well, because it's going to feel more authentic, more genuine when they are in alignment, and it starts from people that are picking up the phones, like call service, to
mhm,
how you're training your bots in AI, if you're leveraging bots for services, and things like that. And I would even say that, like, I think even the use of AI and transparency there, is a great way for a business to kind of start. But again, people are looking for a consistent character within
mm.
their experience and with your brand. And if you kind of misalign and you show up as somebody else, it's very off-putting to people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then give me an idea of, so with the community, when people like join the community, as you said, this is a different way of, obviously they join it for certain reasons, but this is another way of doing business because you build those relationships. Maybe the people in that community may refer you, may help. I mean, this is obviously a different approach than just going out looking for customers.
Oh, 100%. A lot of people will ask me, like, what is your growth plan? What does growth look like? And I
Mhm.
said, I want quality. over
Mhm.
quantity members. I said at the very beginning, we were starting from a very vulnerable place, and we have a lot of women who are experiencing a lot of life, and I really
Mhm.
want them to be able to show up as their whole selves. And in order for them to feel comfortable with that vulnerability, I think we do need to be very intentional about who we kind of welcome into the space. And so I'm not
Right.
saying we ever have turned anybody away, but we have a member code of conduct. And then when it comes to people joining, one of the things I have done throughout the whole pandemic is do member one-on-one onboarding. So when somebody joins, I have a Calendly set up with like a time block time on my Tuesdays
Mhm.
and Thursday afternoons to do onboarding. It helps me get to know who's coming in the door, what they need from us. We can adjust and scale our programming based on the things that I'm hearing. But for them, it's always funny too, because people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're the CEO. I don't want to take your time." People sometimes won't schedule time.
Right.
Like, it's a title. I am
Mhm. Yeah.
literally here for you, and that's why it stands for Chief Empowerment Officer, not Chief Executive Officer, right? That's the CEO.
Mhm.
For me, because it's important that I'm removing the leadership barriers that women tend to face in the workplace. And so by opening up my calendar and living that value of, like, there is no hierarchy here, we are all equals, we're here to collaborate and learn and grow together. I have to live that by opening up my calendar and making sure that there is dedicated time for our new members and existing members to be able to come and talk to me, to get coaching and mentoring if they need it, and then or just to understand, like, the long list of benefits the
Mhm.
community offers, because that can
Mhm.
be overwhelming as well. And I want people to come in and feel like they're seen and heard, and that we're using their time in the best way possible while they're with us. And word of mouth is 100% our top driver of new members.
Right, right. And from those members themselves, like the benefits, the knock-on benefits for their own careers and business are obviously they're connecting with people, they're building that trust before because I mean a lot of people struggle because people say to salespeople, oh, you've got to create value, you've got to do stuff, build trust. And they're like, but how? How? Because like I try, but I'm reaching out to people who don't know me. I have to,
Uh-huh.
it's a hard world, it's busy, it's noisy, it's really hard to get. I mean, it's really hard to get in front of people. It's really hard to get meetings. Everybody's complaining about, lead flow and all that kind of stuff. Where you're talking is a maybe a longer game, but a more, as you said, a more high quality one.
Mhm. Yeah, it's the choice between scale versus sustainability, and as a
Mhm.
small mission-based business, give me a sustainability.
Sure.
As an organization, I don't need to have 2,000 members. It would be nice, but I don't need to. Like, in order to achieve our mission, like, we need to kind of keep it tight in that way, and 100% we've had members. I have a member in Denver who builds websites, who met a member in Orlando who does branding. She had a client came to her and said, they're like, "We want a rebrand and a website refresh." And
Mhm.
Danelle in Denver's like, "I don't do branding, but this woman over here that I know and trust does."
Mhm.
So they pitched the work together, and she said through this work and other work by collaborating with other women within the network, she's gotten like 750% return on her member dues. Because of course Danelle did the math. Like, we're all
Oh,
digital
yeah.
marketers, we love the data.
Mhm.
And I think working your network, is so important. I'm also working on a book right now. I've pushed out publication a little bit, but in the research, it's all about helping closing the networking gap for women. It is the shortcut to success. Like, there's a reason why some of the biggest major corporate deals have been made on the golf course, because while you're putting around and talking, like,
Mhm.
opportunities happen, but women
Mhm.
don't always have access to those things. They don't have time for those sorts of things. And so really helping them to close that networking gap, because what I learned in some of my research for the book is that women don't move up within organizations by being put as a lead on a project. They often get seen as dominating or aggressive if they're leading something. They don't actually grow and get into leadership by being in a space with other leaders.
Mhm.
Where they tend to actually come through and grow in leadership is through third party referral. So
Mhm.
basically somebody else saying, "She's amazing. She's the right person for the job." It's like that shortcut. It's a great thing too for anybody who's job seeking out there in this industry. For
Mhm.
the marketing world right now is
Right.
tough. And if you're not networking, you're only doing half of what you should be doing for a job search. It's so important.
Yeah. So, what are some other success stories you've seen from the community? Because that was a great one about the two people collaborating. I mean, that was great. What other success stories do you have?
Yeah. Well, we do this thing called the ask and give exchange. Every time we're in a room together, virtually or in person, we invite our attendees to stand up, take the mic, and ask for what they need. No guilt, no shame.
Mhm.
And it's always confidential unless they I ask after and I'm like, can we share this? They'll be like,
Right.
yeah. And it's amazing to hear what women will stand up and ask for, because honestly, we aren't given the chance to ask, and it's a muscle we kind of have to build. Like a lot of people, you'll ask, how can I help you? And they're kind of deer in headlights.
Yeah, yeah.
So this practice has really helped us. So we had one woman stand up and say, I recently overheard a coworker of mine literally makes a crap load more than me. And we went to the same college, got the same degree, the same year, and came to the same company to work. What do I do? And the advice from the room was basically just talk to your boss and ask, do we have pay equity within this company? Do we practice pay equity as a company, first of all? Yes or no? And they were like, yes. And then she says, so could we look into my salary to make sure that I am being paid equitably compared to maybe some of my counterparts? And the boss is like, well, of course I can. I'll do that for you. Come back. And she got a $60,000 a year raise, not six, not 16,
Yeah.
6D.
You're gonna give me the name of that company?
That I can't share. But,
Okay.
I mean, it was just astounding, and it's again, when you open up the floor and allow for that vulnerability and for people to ask these questions in a safe space with people who probably have been there before, and knowing the right way to navigate that, because that could get really tricky politically, right? Like, when you hear
Yeah.
somebody's salary in the workplace, although now we're a lot of places and states are practicing more pay transparency, it used to be you get a slap on the wrist if you talked about your salary or you said anybody else's salary in the office. But all it's doing is keeping more marginalized workers in their place. So by allowing us to have those conversations in a safe space and then give her the coaching she needed to approach it in a way that was professional, it really, really helped her. Again, like $60,000 a year. That's incredible. That was probably just doubled her salary, I have to
Yeah,
imagine.
yeah. No, that's an amazing story. But it does raise again, I mean, the great concept of having people advise you in advance and help you prepare yourself for an
Yeah.
exchange like that. Because, let's face it, I mean, for most people, talking money is always a very awkward. It's an awkward thing.
Mhm.
We carry a lot of baggage into those conversations and stuff. So being able to be well prepared, obviously the outcome was amazing. But I would say obviously the preparation was key to that. Because what was her original plan? What was she originally planning to do?
She was pretty livid. I think she knew the number, but she didn't share it in the group because it was
Sure.
embarrassing, quite honestly. And, she was kind of ready to go in and kind of swinging, she was
Mhm.
pretty upset by the fact that and I think she knew that this guy probably didn't do as well as her at school. And then she saw
Mhm.
his performance on the job. And so I think when we find out things like this, because as Americans specifically, I'll say, we tend to really over identify with our titles, our jobs, and our salary, right? Like, I don't feel like the rest of the world is quite that way as we are here, right? Very American thing. What do you do for a living? I'm like, we met 2 seconds ago. Why
Yeah.
don't you ask what books I'm reading or what hobbies I have, right? And so I think for her, it was just she really internalized it. And I think she really began
Mhm.
to question her own self and her worth and the value
Right.
that she brought to her work. And I think she needed to kind of say it out loud and hear other people affirm her position on this and then kind of move past that processing of like the anger and frustration
Mhm.
and then sort of get to a mental space where she could kind of come at it in a more balanced way, that would position her professionally and, maybe not cause as much of a ruckus and then ultimately get her the outcome she deserved, which is a
Right.
better salary.
Yeah, but it's a good point that you make. I mean, especially here. I mean, being from Ireland, and I came here during
Yep.
the dot-com era.
Mhm.
Yeah, it did amaze. It did amaze me. It still kind of does to this day how important the title was. I mean, the first time when somebody asked me for a title change, and I said, "Well, you're looking for a pay rise here," and they were like, "No, no, I just need the title change," and I'm like, "Okay."
There it is.
I was like, "You can call yourself whatever you want as long as you're not looking for more money."
Exactly. You'd have thought it was the other way around, but no,
Yeah,
it is so
but it is
true. It's
it
so
is.
true.
I mean, and obviously people's self-esteem, self-worth and stuff tends to get, tied maybe perhaps a little too much to that, but,
Yeah.
so what are the future plans for your community? I know you're gonna try and keep it contained, but what are your future plans?
Mhm. Yeah, so we are kind of adding some new additional features. You said earlier about the importance of finding people who can kind of coach you, mentor you,
Yeah.
and I think there's nothing more powerful than peers. So at the start of the year, we're going to be introducing Power Circle Plus, which is basically like masterminds. It's like your own personal boards of director,
Mm,
so that our members can find a regular group of trusted women that's their circle that they can meet with for 1 hour once a month. And we'll kind of have some guiding principles on that. So we're going to kick those off. We're also going to host a conference here in Cincinnati in January. It's going to like fresh, new year.
Hmm.
Marketing tends to have kind of compacted all of our big
Yeah.
major conferences into October and September. So we kind of moved out of the fall and into the new year. So we'll be celebrating our 10-year conference or 10-year anniversary at our conference here in Cincinnati in January of 2026. And then, yeah, we've added master classes, monthly master classes to our docket for our members, which has been incredible. So we'll be looking for more speakers and people to facilitate for that. But yeah, a lot of it's just kind of just continuing to just breathe life into the sense of like, we don't have to compete. Like we can totally collaborate.
Collaborate. Yeah. Yeah.
Lifting the voices of our members. I mean, our whole philosophy on the funnel is that like the voice of customer is always number one, and we're always listening. We survey the members, we interview them, we do the one-on-one onboardings, and it really helps us because at the end of the day, everything from like the original founder story to my story as a working mom resonates with other women so they
Mhm.
don't feel so alone. And so really the voice of the members is like the source of all of our content. And then their voice gets amplified. They are the heroes of the story here, which is really the way it ought to be. And then we take that content and that's really speaking to the needs of other
Mhm.
women out there who think that they're really alone and that they maybe can do that's the thing, right? We have to do it all, be it all, and it's like, no, like you definitely can lean on
Mhm.
others and find strength in kind of some solidarity sometimes outside of just the solutions alone. You kind of
Mhm.
never know. Like great example here, never know where it's going to take you. If you'd asked me 6 years ago, I'd be running this entire organization. I wouldn't have believed it.
Yeah, and I think that's a great. I mean, I think that's and that's a great example. And like I know for myself, my own career, it's the more open you are, the more you embrace the journey. And obviously, you're helping people now come together to help each other on that journey because can feel like a lonely journey, regardless of whether you're a man or woman. But
Absolutely.
yeah, but I think it's fantastic. The other thing you mentioned earlier, I just wanted to come back to quickly before we finish, is adding the coaching and stuff because I'm a big believer in professional coaching. I've used coaches myself in the
Mhm.
past. I think it's a hidden superpower. I don't understand. I often say to people, when they say, "Well, I can't afford to do that," and I say, "Okay, but let's talk about what do you do for a hobby." And
Mhm.
some, if they say, like you mentioned golf earlier, if it's golf, I say,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, yeah. So have you ever paid somebody to help you with your golf swing?
Yeah.
And they'd be like, oh yeah, yeah, I work with them. You go, okay, so you've invested money in something that's never going to put bread on your table, but you
Mhm.
won't invest in your career.
Right. Yeah. It is a huge investment in your career. I mean, and I think coaching, it'll come from me, it'll come from the peers, it'll come from like our ask and
Mhm.
gives. There's just every time you turn around, there's the opportunity for learning and growth. And I think that's helped us identify our psychographic for Together Digital as
Mhm.
they're highly collaborative women. The majority of them have 15 to 20 years of experience. So we actually skew on the older side. I'm using
Right.
air quotes for those who aren't seeing the video in this industry, right?
Mhm.
And so it's really, really nice to have a safe space to kind of talk about the things that are maybe unsure, even as an entrepreneur. Like you said,
Mhm.
men, women in general, like entrepreneurship can be a little lonely. So
Mhm.
even having other fellow entrepreneurs to lean on, talk to, and be transparent with about like, I have this client. Do I need to fire them? I have this other
Mhm.
client. I haven't raised the rates in 5 years. Should I do that?
Yeah.
Things like that are just really, really helpful to have. Because to your point, I love that. I'm gonna start using that analogy. Would you pay for somebody to coach you on your tennis or your golf swing?
Yeah. Exactly.
Probably. But on your career, like how many swings are you taking a week with your career?
Yep.
You know? Love
Absolutely. It's a crazy. I would think it's crazy. People who because oftentimes like people would sit around and they'll be like, well, my company doesn't train. They don't invest in any training or anything. And I'm going, yeah, well, don't sit around ever waiting for a company to care more about you than you do.
yeah. I think that's the thing I learned too, and why I was probably always meant for entrepreneurship is I was
Mhm.
never good with just being a number or bottom line item.
Mhm.
Like I always
Mhm.
had and a lot of people that I work with, we always wanted to add more value.
Mhm.
We were there for more than obviously we want the paycheck, but we also want to
Right.
be there for more than a
Mhm.
paycheck. And I think being an entrepreneur has really kind of allowed me to, when I'm hiring and bringing people in, create a different culture than maybe what I experienced in the past.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am 100% that person that says, you know, I've been on the other side of things. I've worked for companies that I've loved, and I've still had to face the hardship of we lose a client and they
Yeah.
love me and I love them and they just can't afford to keep me anymore, you know, and
Mhm.
it's not something personal, it's business at the end of the day. But it is one of those things where, yeah, I'm with you, John. I don't love it when people basically hand over their future to a business because at the end of the day, they're not going to do the same. It's not going to be a two-way street. I don't care what they say or what they have on the walls. We're family here. That's like always red flag, right?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. No, wait, it's, you know, families are difficult enough. You don't need additional families.
No, yeah, enough of that.
Well, listen, Amy, this has been fantastic. All of Amy's information will be below this video. But before we go, please do remind people about what you do and Together Digital.
Absolutely. So Together Digital is an amazing network of women, about 500 across the country, across the globe. Actually, we have some members outside of the country as well. We choose to share our knowledge, our power, our connections freely, openly. We have a ton of amazing content for growing and brushing up on your digital skills to meeting and networking and really making like finding your professional soulmates. I laugh because it's like, you know, people can go online and meet and fall in love and get married.
Yeah.
Why can't you find your next business partner, professional soulmates, whatever that looks like, work wives, you know, online and through an organization like ours. And again, we still have some events happening within
Mhm.
Cincinnati, Cleveland, Columbus, and Detroit. And then we have our national conference here in Cincinnati. But yeah, I love what I'm doing. I love that I got to take my title of CEO and make it Chief Empowerment
Mhm.
Officer when I bought the business. Because again, the power of connections is absolutely undeniable. We need it as humans, and we need it for our career growth.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, listen, thanks again, Amy. Thank you for watching and listening. See you all again very soon.